On the afternoon of December 3rd, 2012, a freelance photographer working for the New York Post newspaper named Umar Abbasi was walking down the stairs of the 49th Street subway station in New York City. At some point, he did pass two people that were engaged in a pretty heated conversation. He starts to notice that those two men are now straight up yelling at each other. And so these two guys are about 100 to 125 feet away from him when all of a sudden he hears a scream coming from the left side of the platform. He saw a woman pointing down at the train tracks, and he sees there is now a man, one of the two men who had been fighting, laying face down on the train tracks. He looks up down the tunnel where the train would come out of, and he sees the headlights of the train. It is now coming into the station. And so Umar starts running down the platform to try to get to this man to pull him out of the tracks. The man down on the tracks tries to stand up, and Umar sees he's really struggling to stand, and he tries to pull himself up and out of the tracks, but he doesn't have the strength or the coordination. He sees that this guy down on the tracks is not going to be able to get out of there before the train hits him. And so Umar finally comes to a stop, and he watches as this man down on the tracks just turns and faces the train. And then seconds later, the train, although it did try to stop, impacted this man and killed him instantly. The man's name was Kaisa Khan, and he was 58 years old. When the police finally showed up, they arrested the other man who Han had been fighting with. He was a 30-year-old named Naeem Davis, and Davis would actually tell police that he had pushed him onto the tracks, but it was in self-defense. However, that self-defense story didn't stop him from being charged with murder. The media and the public at large had already come to the conclusion that Davis was guilty, and this was due in large part to a particular picture. As Umar was running down the platform, Umar was also taking dozens and dozens of pictures, and those pictures were of Han right before he was struck by the train. He gave them to his employer, the New York Post newspaper, and the day after the incident, they ran on the front page a picture of Han right before he's about to be killed with the headline, "Doomed." Nobody could believe that Davis was anything other than a cold-blooded killer. Nearly 5 years later, when Davis did finally get his trial, he was acquitted of all charges because it turned out Han was very drunk and had picked a fight with Davis, and Davis was filmed on more than one occasion on the platform trying to get Han to leave him alone. After Han began making death threats and then grabbed Davis's shoulder, Davis turned around and pushed him, and Han, being drunk, stumbled and fell backwards onto the tracks and then was ultimately killed. Here is the infamous photo of Han on the cover of the New York Post newspaper.